The next thing, data quality reviews. So let's go back in here into the sandbox environment. Okay, so the first thing to know about data quality in VectorSurv is that we do a lot of things to prevent inaccurate data or just illogical data from being entered into the system. So things like the example I gave earlier was like we're not going to allow you to enter in Tuesday as a trap type, right? That's illogical, and so we shouldn't go in that way. So when you're entering data with the forms on the website, we have drop-down lists, right? So if you have a trap type, you're going to be selecting it from a drop-down list or lures, things of that nature. Um, this is also present in the import process. So I showed you an example of that earlier where I imported data that was incorrect. And it threw an error message at me saying, "Hey, you need to fix this before it goes in because this value doesn't make sense." So when we try to catch as many of these errors as possible upon data creation, whether it be through the forms, through the Excel or CSV import process, or if you're submitting data through the API programmatically. Um, However, there are potential examples where maybe the data isn't incorrect, but we do want to provide you with a warning before you actually make that decision. One example of this is when you're importing trap types, like we just did in the previous section. So if you think about this, let's say you have a bunch of trap collections that are OV cups. OV cups are obviously used to collect eggs from Aedes mosquitoes, and when they're placed, usually you would place more than one of them at a given location. So in the system, we make it possible for you to enter in uh, arthropod collection records at the same site on the same day at the same time, and even that they collected the same amount of mosquitoes. Maybe you put a bunch of OV cups out, and you don't collect any mosquitoes, so they would all have a count of zero. So you would have a bunch of data records that would look identical. Um, but before you create those records, we're going to give you a warning message just saying, "Hey, are you sure you want to do this?" So let's look at a quick example of that. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to duplicate the collection records that we just created in the import process. So we have all these trap records, right? So it's quite possible that you might want to put two CO2 traps right next to each other on the same day and for the same number of nights, and they might collect the same mosquitoes. Maybe there would be some interaction between the two that would, maybe uh, uh, impact your counts. So this probably isn't super common with the trap types we have here, the CO2 and the gravids, but it could be common for other trap types. So let's try this test. So when you have these duplicate records like this, when you're trying to do these imports, we're going to provide you with these green warning messages saying, "Hey, for row number one in the system, there's already a collection record in the system that looks like this. Are you sure you want to do this?" So we're going to give you the ability to do this if you really want to. If you actually did double up your trap records, you could go to the bottom and commit your imports. But if you have a file like this where every single row in the import says, "Hey, the file like this already, or a record like this already exists on the database. Are you sure you want to do this?" It's probably a good idea to go back and check the file to make sure it's not already imported to the system. So the red messages are error messages. You're not going to be able to go past them. Like we're not going to let you through. But the greens are warning messages, just giving you like, "Hey, maybe you should review this before it goes to the database." The other place where we show you error messages is in the navigation bar if you go to issues. So this is a fake agency, so it doesn't have any issues found, but I'm going to go switch to Sakiolo quick. Now you'll see that there's actually two red dots around issues. That's giving you kind of a visual cue. Hey, maybe I should take a look at this. Um, so on the right-hand side, we actually have some user help for the two types of issues that might be identified here. Um, the first is a spatial issue. So a spatial issue is saying, I'm going to filter these just to show the spatial issues. A spatial issue is going to tell you, "Hey, we have your coordinate boundaries in the system, You actually did a collection record that's outside of those boundaries. Is this correct? Are you sure about this? Maybe you have your coordinates wrong. So if you have a spatial issue like these issues, spatial, 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 it's saying, hey, you might want to double check this because you might have trapped outside of your agency boundaries, and that commonly happens. Maybe you're helping out a neighboring jurisdiction, or for some reason you did trap outside of your designated boundaries. That's totally fine. If that's the case, you would just mark it as resolved. So like this one, it's only 5 meters outside of the boundary. This is like probably okay. So you could submit this as okay. It's going to ask you to confirm that. And then once you do that, it's going to reload the issues page and it'll say, oh, that message now will be removed. So there's no more of here that have that 5 meters outside of the range. Something I will point out, and that we see quite commonly, is something like this, where it's saying this is 12,000 kilometers outside of the of your agency boundaries. What this typically means is that somebody forgot to or included an extra negative in front of like your latitude or longitude, and that's saying like, oh, this trap is actually, somewhere out in the middle of the Pacific or out in the middle of the ocean. So for issues like this, you might just want to go double check to make sure, okay, do I have this correct, the correct negative in front of the latitude and longitude? And then for the rest of these, you might want to, like this one is, like some of these are a little bit outside, like 7 kilometers, 19 kilometers. You might just want to double check that those ones are correct. If you click on this view or edit, it'll show you, it'll go to that collection record and show you where the site is. The other type of issue message you might see here is related to dates. So recently, VectorSurv added the ability to add in active and deactive dates for surveillance sites. Maybe you trapped at a location for multiple years, but you are no longer planning on trapping there any further. So you can add a deactivate date to that surveillance site. Um, when you do so, it's saying like, hey, this trap actually isn't active during these time periods. What this warning message is saying is, hey, you have a collection record, this collection record number 400, that is on the other side of when you said this trap was active. You might want to resolve this issue. The easiest way to resolve this is probably to go to the surveillance site that's being referenced here. If you go to this collection record, I'll show you the surveillance site. And then you can go to the surveillance site and increase the active and deactive dates until this warning message goes away. So I'm assuming that almost all of these are 3 days off. This is probably one surveillance site that just got the active and deactive date added incorrectly. So that would just be something you would want to review. So these are the built-in data quality checks that we have in the system. There are other, error messages that we would never have the ability to know about. So let's say at surveillance site number 5, you never set gravid traps. This is a place where you only do BG traps for whatever reason. So it's probably a good idea for you, once a year during the off season to export the data. So again, this is near where you would do the imports. So if you go to tools, data tools, export data, you can pull data files out of the system in CSV or Excel formats. So for us, let's look at some arthropod collections. These are the records that we just imported to the system. It'll give you the ability to filter your data by the agencies you have access to. So I could do this fake agency and SAC Yellow if I control click. But for now, I just want the fake data. What years data do you want exported? So because I imported all that historical data, some of these records are quite old. Let's go back a while. Do I want to filter by site or by trap type, by species? Yeah, so if you use this tool, you can pull data out of the database in a static format. So it's gonna download a file for you, or it's in a zip folder, but it will download an Excel file for you. I'll just open that quickly to show it. So here's that Excel file that was downloaded from the system. And you can use this to review the data, double check to make sure that everything kind of looks correct for you. And that, things that might be true internal to your agency that we wouldn't know about, are correct here. And if you do have any like bulk data updates that are needed, let's say somebody did accidentally import to data records and you need them deleted, yeah, just reach out to us and we can help you get things cleaned up for your agency. The other thing I just wanted to show quickly for how you could review this data is we do have an R package now called VectorSurv R. So if you're familiar with R, all the packages are stored within an organization called CRAN. So this is our VectorSurv R page within CRAN. And we've also done some really nice YouTube series about like introduction to the R package, how to access your data, how to filter and summarize the data. This would be a great tool for an agency to use to systematically or regularly check the data if they want to be doing regular data reviews to make sure everything is feeding into the system correctly. So if you have people on staff that are comfortable with using R, this is a tool I would definitely recommend.